Hello, it's Joey, and today we are decorating journal cards using Gluebook pages. So I'm going to be taking a page out of this Gluebook that I started filling relatively recently. It's filled up quite quickly. I love using my scraps, some little bits of paper to fill the pages, and I welcome you joining my monthly challenge. I'm going to be filling a page each month inspired by local nature, so do subscribe if you're interested in joining in some glue booking and some collage. That's the page I did last week. I'm going to take a page from this and turn it into a few really beautiful journal cards that could fit in our junk journal. And what's special about these that come from Gluebook pages is we get a lot of texture on the front. I've also added different backs to each of them, and I'll go through each of those. But with all of these, really I'm using basic supplies, so nothing special. I'm challenging myself to use some of those supplies in slightly different ways, and maybe adding one or two new supplies too. And really what I want to do today with this video is inspire you to have more fun with what you have, using basic supplies, and just basically freshen up the crafting styles that we each have. You can take a screenshot of the process. I've just put the basic steps down here, so feel free to take a screenshot of that. And let's choose a page from that Gluebook and get going making these cute little journaling cards. When I fill pages in my Gluebook, it's one of those things where I get completely lost in the moment, and I have no rules. I just have fun. I add other elements, like I've been scribbling with a pencil. I like to add any digitals that I happen to have handy, but a lot of it is just scrap paper. For this project, making these little journal cards with things tucked in at the back, I think I want a relatively neutral background, and the joy of a Gluebook is you can have all sorts of designs on your pages and just pick whatever you want in that moment. That's a really nice one. I can't bear to bring myself to use that one yet. I'm going to feel a bit hoardy and stick onto it. Here's a few others I was just playing at making. So the first step is, you can see I'm being a bit careful, to tear one page out. Be quite careful about it because that is a key moment. And what we're going to do is augment this on both the front and the back. So choose your Gluebook page and tear out carefully, and then let's have a little look at the front and maybe add something on the back as well. And when I say let's look at the front, I'm just looking to see if there's any extra components that I want to add at this stage. And on this one, I have already added just a little bit of mica powder when I stamped on it, so that the mica powder just stuck to the stamp. So it's a genuine question. Assess the front of your cards or the Gluebook page at this stage, and if you want to add more of this matte texture, you can add a light coat of coloured gesso. I might just do a little bit of that, and then we might just see if there's any extra texture that we want to add using stamps. So why don't we just add the tiniest amount on top of here so I can show you what I mean. I like to add, I think it probably shows best on these, a little bit of, it's almost the colour of foundation that you'd put on your face, just a little bit of dullness and neutral matte on top. So to do that, what I would do is just take a little bit of gesso, and this step is not absolutely necessary by a long way, but it is part of the fun of the process. I've put a tiny amount of gesso in. I don't think I need much, but I am going to raid one of my tubes of metallic acrylic colours, and I've got a few of these to choose from. They're absolute whoppers, and the little magpie in me can't stop using them. I think they're absolutely gorgeous. They're from, let's see if I can find the box, they're from a set of 8. Let me share this. They're from a set of 8 called Precious Metals, and they were kindly gifted to me from Arteza, and there's just luxuriousness in a tube. I just think they're great for adding that bit of extraness. So why don't I take a tiny amount of one of these? I want to keep it in the gold vanilla shade, so I'm not going to take anything from the silver. I'll try the Pearl Marmalade. It's a little bit stronger in pigment. It looks very exciting, and I have got quite a number of bronze colours already on there. So add that to my gesso. Very easy to mix in. Just like that. And I'm just going to take a little bit of this, maybe just over some. And this piece of Gluebook page is going to be cut up into 4 like this. So 4, 1, 2, 3, 4. So I'm thinking already about making sure that I've got something of interest in each of those 4 quadrants. So they need to be able to stand alone as a journal card and have enough interest on them. So at this stage, just adding a little bit. Doesn't matter if there are gaps in what we do. We'll add a bit of texture and a bit of warmth. I'm going to go off-piste, and although I have my little list of process steps, I always add a little bit of whatever I feel like doing at the time, and that is exactly what we need to do. Just get a little bit like this, spread it over. And that's actually quite useful because the page itself isn't too wet, which makes it easier to dry off for the next stage. Okay, I think what I'll do is I'll dry that off, and then we'll add a little bit of texture by way of perhaps a little bit more stamping, and then we'll consider the back and what we want to do with that. So I've dried it off with my heat gun, and it didn't take long at all because we didn't add a great deal of liquid, and I have just a little bit more of that ageing effect on the top, and it's not just one block of colour either. Quite see-through, just adds a bit more interest. The other effect, if you can hear that, it's a little bit more rigid and thicker, and it's got that gorgeous crinkly effect, which I just really love. Before I add more stamps and texture to the front, I think I'm going to just assess the back and how I want that to finish up. And much as I love this handwriting on the back, I think what I'm going to do is add something a bit more scripty. So on the ones that I'd made before, I have some very pretty old style script, and I think I'll use that. Let's just make a choice. I pulled out a few examples of things that might work, and I think that's the one I'll use. But the candidates, this is just a beautiful piece of French ephemera. Beautiful, that might work. I might also consider using something like this. I really like the bold black font and how it's definitely got an ageing feel. That's really exciting actually, that sheet. And then something I used when I made my envelope pocket flips was this piece. And I like this, but I think it's got a bit too much depth of colour. So there's quite a lot of these oranges behind the text, and I think for these little journal cards I want the backing to be relatively pale so that what we put on top really does pop, and that's what you see. So I think the best candidate today, I'll go back to my French ephemera sheet, and what I'm going to do is just stick this onto here. I'm happy to have some of this column of blank showing. I just need a little bit of glue, and we can stick this on. And because I'm going to cut 4 little journal cards out of this, the glue needs to be relatively all the way over, so it's no good the glue being just round the edges, because I do want this to stick down. And although I have, on the ones I've already made, sewn around them, you don't need to. And if you do use plenty of glue, both on your glue page when you're putting your Gluebook page together and on any backing, you don't need to go around with a sewing machine. I know we don't all have them, we can't all get access to them all the time, so this is just a suggestion for how to do this if you don't have a sewing machine. And I'm a relative newcomer to that myself too, so I completely understand. I'm going to put that on, making sure I get all of the text. I think that will fit like that. And then what I think I will do is rip around this as opposed to cutting. Let's have a little go at that, something a bit different for me. And this might sound really basic, but for me, I'm even changing the way I create edges on some of my projects, just as a way of doing something a bit different. The paper that I have printed onto for this digital is 90 GSM, and I do get a lot of questions about the type of paper that I use. I use a paper that I buy from Amazon, and it is called Navigator. The brand is Navigator, and the pack that I get describes itself as being particularly bright, and I do find that it helps with the colour of the pigment when I print. Just tear this off. Doing it this way gives me some nice tatty edges, a bit more authentic. If you have any suggestions for smart ways of tearing, I don't necessarily want to go out and buy a special tear ruler. This was just what I had in my craft room and I thought I would have a go with it. But do share. Let's all share our ideas. This is the time when you realise when you turn it over you've stuck it on upside down. That's the kind of thing I'd do. Surely not. Let's have a look. So I've got, hooray, I've got a beautiful front and a beautiful back, and I said I'm going to challenge myself to use a few different supplies. Just pulled out, rather than just using my standard postmarks and my standard text, which would be so easy to do, I'm going to have a go at something different. And the reason I chose this, a different stamp, I have to have another one here, is it has fine indentation, so it's got a fine design, detailed design in both the pot at the bottom and in the leaves at the top. And really what I'm looking for when I add to a glue page is not necessarily what the picture is in the stamp, but the type of lines that are cut into the stamp and how detailed they are, how fine they are, because all I want in my background here is that essence of something going on, that suggestion of a picture so it catches the eye. And then what we're going to do on each of these journal cards is add a choice of focal point on top, so it's just making a beautiful background. This is another one that I never use, so I thought I would just pull it into current activities. And maybe the reason I don't use it is I feel it's a little bit scary because the pattern is very bold. Each of these individual notes is actually quite big in the design. Let's have something there and something there, and that will do. And that will mean that gets picked up on all 4 of the journal cards. We're going to cut here, we're going to cut here. I'm going to use my little Fiskars guillotine for this because it has a really crisp cut. It cuts through what could be several layers of paper on the Gluebook page now. I'll just put that in. I've measured with a ruler and made a little mark. So we'll cut that down the middle. And then we'll cut it in half. I can just see the mark. They disappear once you've made them. Do you not find that? Try and get that perpendicular. There we go. I like 3" by 4". That tends to work really well for the eye. Let's see what these turn out as. So these are 3 and nearly 3.5 inches. Nearly 3.5 by nearly 4.5 inches. So I think a decent size for a journal card, and a little bit damp from the glue, but not too bad, certainly okay to carry on. What I want to do before I add my focal points is just round any corners, and maybe not all 4. So, corner rounder, my favourite. Despite buying new ones, I tend to gravitate back to this one. It's just an X cut and it works absolutely brilliantly, even on paper that's slightly damp. I'm going to do trimming on 3 corners and leave where I'm going to put my eyelet. I'm going to have that as a right angle still, so just trim these off. I think that will do. So 4 little bases now, and it's time to add the focal points. I want to add a couple of birds to the front, so I think those work really, really well. And the birds that I tend to use come from this set. So I have a beautiful page here, Fussy Cut Birds from Tracy Fox. Usually what I do is I also add texture to a digital. I like to add them with texture. So what I've done is stamp using my postmark stamps. I've sprayed with my Mica spray, and there's a bit of daubing and some Mica generally splotted over this. Maybe let a few drips just cascade onto it to add a little bit more interest. So I think what I'll do is I'll use some that have the texture, and I do have a pot. I'll try and have a few handy. Shall we pick 1 or 2? So I think maybe I'll avoid, oh actually, even the blue ones, there's blue behind. This is where I start to think about what I've already got as colour behind on my journal card. That's a nice one with a double. I think that would work well there. I just want a couple, I don't want them all to be birds, I want variety today. I think I like those, I like those. I said I wanted to do something different, and part of doing something different for me at the moment is playing with washi tape, and I really like the look of this black and white set. So this is from Stationery Pal. Let me get a few of these out. And the reason I like this set is the designs are very dainty. Let's pull a few out and you can see. So it comes in a set of how many? 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, 8, 9, 10. There's 10 designs in this box, which gives me, oh I like that scribble, plenty to go at. Maybe the music, I like those too. I'll have a play with these. And I think what I will do is just put a little mat behind one of these, made up of 2 or 3 of these pieces of washi tape. So I'm not going to measure, just put something down as a layer. So the idea is that we're making mats for our focal points, and I'm using washi tape that's not got too much fancy colour in it, so it's not going to compete too much with the focal point that will sit on top. How about the music one? That's really nice, isn't it? I might have a discount code for you. Check the video description box below to see if there is a discount code for, not for just this product, but for everything on Stationery Pal. I often have one of those, so I really like that. I feel like I need, so he's going to sit on there. I want something here, so time to call on Andrea and maybe get something out of the Andrea box. I feel like I'm getting through practice a bit more comfortable with just making choices as well. It's a bit like a muscle, collage and crafting. The more you do, the more you kind of work out what you like and what works. So that can go behind the bird. And on the top of here I'm going to add a tab, and this again is something different for me. I was recently sent a package of beautiful goodies from my friend Helen, who has an Etsy shop called French Heirloom Papers, and in it she presented me with a bit of a challenge, which was some gorgeous fabrics, and I'm not au fait with how to use it. So through these journal cards I'm going to have a play at using a strip of this as a way of me learning what I might be able to do and how that can complement some of the existing things I use. So this was also in the pack, just some, I thought I'd just share it, some gorgeousness by way of some old French magazines. I mean, they're just, all of these pages are going to get used, but I just think they're just so beautiful, aren't they, to look at. Here's another one. Amazing. So French Heirloom Papers, take a look at Helen's Etsy shop. Always interesting to see, I think, ephemera that comes from lots of different countries around the world, and we see different things. These are just beautiful old pages. That's gorgeous. I shall use all of these in lots of different ways. But today what I want to use is a little strip of this, and I really want to use this because I've got greens in it, although a little bit more blue than the greens in our natural background, but I really want to bring out some of this orange. So I'm going to use that as a little bit of, just do this by eye, just a little bit of a tab at the top. I thought I'd put that on. Yes, I think that works. It's a little bit wide, isn't it? Let's just take that down. That's better. Just add that as a tab at the top. There we are. So I think I'll add a little bit of a label on top. It's quite angular, this. I normally would choose something with rounded edges again, I think, as a label, but I quite like that. There's something a bit Art Deco about that shape. That can go on there. And I think I'm ready to add one of my little birds. I think because of the orange here, I'm actually going to use this bird because he's got just a bit more of this orange coming through on his body. I'd just say that behind the scenes I'm having one of those days where everything falls on the floor, and I don't know if it happens to you, it just feels some days like that's just what happens. I'm going to position him, ideally so his tail and beak don't stick over the sides, but I want him to overlap the bit of ephemera on the left, and I also want him to overlap the ends of the washi, so that one's working okay for me. That's quite good. Just have a little peek at that. And on the back of here, I think I'm going to add just a kind of belly band, maybe with a large image. That's too wide, it's going to come too deep. I think I will just almost halve that, just tear that off. And that will give me something to tuck things into. So that can go on there. And the beautiful bold type, I think I'll have a whole word, Notting Hill. Stick that on. This will get held more firmly because I will do a little bit of sewing around them. But I'll just stick that on to begin with, and it would be enough. If you add enough glue, you don't need to sew around this. I can just trim that off. And that, I think, without the extras having been added at the back, is one of the cards. Check my process. We have decorated the back with some form of tuck band, and I've added a tab, and before I sew it I'm just going to do the other three, and then we will sew around them and add eyelets and a thread. So for the next one I pulled out something a bit more dainty. So a page like this would work really well. So this is from Irresistible Prints, and I thought this butterfly would work well. I've actually landed on this one, which is in fact another Tracy Fox. I'm going to add that as my focal point, and I want a Tracy label. So I'm going to pick one out of my nicely full box. Maybe a number, that would be great. Actually, how about that one? I like the non-angular edges, so that would be perfect. So it's a nice simple one on here, maybe on this one actually, so we'll stick that on. And just before it sticks down completely, I'm going to add, put that under there. And something again new and a little bit extra that I've been playing with is this gorgeous black washi tape, and it's got gold on it, so these lovely little gold stars and moons. And I find if I just take a tiny amount, I like to rip it down the middle, make it quite delicate. Maybe that's too long. Just a little bit at the bottom, a flash. Maybe use a another run of it at the top, so that can go maybe there, and then just even it up. I think I'll have a little piece up there. So it's my classic trio, and if I just add a little bit of cloth at the top, make it a bit narrower. I don't want to lose that orange, so I'll trim it down from there. Use my fabric, and this time I think I'll make life easy and just staple a piece on. Go back there. Bring that together like that. I don't even mind the fact that I can see the staple. I like that. Now on the back of this one, I thought I'd add a little pocket. So I've just pulled out a scrap of paper. I'm going to put that on there. And again, what I'll do probably is sew around this one. I'll just refresh my corners, trim that off. The extra bit at the bottom, trim that off. Just go back in with my corner rounder, like that. And I've got a pocket here that will allow me to put things in. 1 and 2. So for the third one, I've got these numbers. They are in a digital, but they're a different colour. In fact, I'm going to give that a bit of a jagged edge. I've got some of those posh scissors that cut like that. So I think I'll have one with a jagged edge. Why not? That's going to go on there. And behind it, I'm going to put a couple of these. They're leaves that I have punched out of black paper, but I painted the paper first with some iridescent paint. Let me show you. This is the paper that I painted. It was just plain black. And then I've used some new paints again. And I just was playing really, sampling with them. Opal colours, Gansai Tambay. Again, they're from Stationery Pal, so the discount code, if it's still running, will apply. Check the description box below. I just took a little bit of each of them and was playing. It's 1, 2, 3, 6 little pans, and they have different colour bases in them, so from violet, blue, opal, green, gold, copper and pink. And when you put them on black, they really show up. So I put them on and then I just let it run and I played around with the paper, and then I just punched out some little leaves and you get this great effect. The punch I used is a woodware punch, and when it punches you get a little bit of texture on the leaf, which I do really like. So I'm trying to again challenge myself to use some things differently and to use some different things. So I thought what I'd do is just pop a couple of these behind one of those labels. So maybe there, it's got lots of texture in this then. Put one there, maybe another one. And maybe also, I'm thinking as I look at this, I need my group of 3, do I? Actually, no I don't. I think I'm just going to get that down. I like that. I was going to put a third leaf in, but I think it would look overcrowded. So I'm not going to. Let's get that on there without covering up too much of the leaf. And I'm just thinking I need something under here. It's very plain. So let's just take a bit of one of these. Maybe that's that piece I need. It's got text on it. So I'm going to tuck this underneath the pink so it's not so raw an edge. So we'll get that there. That's it. Perfect. And again, because I've gone over the side, just top up my roundup. There we go. So that's the back, and on the back I thought I would use that beautiful material again from Helen and just put a piece on there. I really like the pattern there. I think I'll do that. What I will do is glue it down as my temporary measure, and again sew just to give it a bit more strength. That can go there, and this feels like it's a very quick number 3. Do I need a tag or a tab at the top? I don't know that I need a tab on them all. I'm going to have an eyelet here. So that's number 3. Now then, what to do with number 4? So I would like a bird, but is it going to, so we're going to have to go do something a bit different because I'm not going to cover her up. So I'm just going to go off piste and do whatever I feel like. So I'm going to let her shine through. So I'll have a bit more text there. And that means I think I need probably a bit of extra at the top as a tab. How about that? So just using materials that we have that maybe I haven't had a go at using to date. I'm already starting to build my confidence about using fabric, and that's the way we do it, isn't it? We just do a few new things. And I think maybe what we need with her is a sentiment. Yes, I think that will work. It's a rather eclectic one, this, but I'm happy about it. That can go up there. So what have we got? Oh, we've got a belly band, we've got another wider band with paper, and we've got a pocket. So let's add maybe a cluster down here to fill in this space. I have a little bit of, the idea is we just pick things up and play. I'll have a little bit of, yeah, a little bit of music washi. It's quite tough. A little bit of another. And I think I'll add, I love the pink coming through. I think I'll just reverse what I had on the front before. And something neutral behind there. Like that. So now I have, actually I'm going to add a little bit of something new again and extra. So I have some holographic washi. And I was wondering how to use this. So it's not easy to cut with my serrated scissors, but I get a lovely jagged edge. I think what I'm going to do is just rip it down the middle and use some of these strips. Back down there, bit of something shocking. Let's get it going with a cut and rip it, and I get something a little bit more interesting than a straight cut. I think that can go up there. So 4 little cards waiting to be sewn, then I'll add the eyelets and the thread, and we'll have 4 journaling cards. So I've now sewed around them, and I do think that that little bit of a border, whether it's by faux stitching or with thread, it adds something extra as a frame to the collage and the extra bits of ephemera that we've added. I also think it somehow makes these extra patterns pop. So I do think it's worth adding something as a frame around your little journal cards. What I want to do now is just add a hole at the top left of each of them, add an eyelet and some thread. So I'll have a go at that, and then we will just see what we have. I've added eyelets and a thread just in the top left here, and on the ones that had a pocket I've filled them with some extra goodies, so just something extra that you can write on when you put it in your junk journal. Journaling cards from Gluebook pages. Join me next week when I fill another Gluebook page. I hope to see you soon.